Here's a number that should make every retro buyer nervous. The gap between the cheapest bike on this list and the most expensive one is over $6,000. Same look, same leather jacket, throwback vibe, wildly different values, and the bike most people walk straight past at the dealer? It quietly ended up being the one I'd hand over my own money for. Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. $6,299. That's the sticker on a brand new 2026 Interceptor 650, and that number is the entire reason this bike kicks off the list. Because there is nothing else on a showroom floor right now that gives you a genuine 648 cubic centimeters air and oil-cooled parallel twin, chrome everywhere, and that perfect late 60s roadster silhouette for the price of a used commuter car. So why is it this cheap? It's not corners being cut, it's geography. Royal Enfield builds these in India at massive scale, and they price for volume, not prestige. That's the whole trick. You're not paying a European badge tax. Now, what does that 47 horsepower actually feel like? On paper, it's modest. In reality, the engine makes its torque low and early, which means around town and on back roads it pulls cleanly from almost nothing. You're not chasing the red line to have fun. Ask anyone who owns one and they'll tell you the same thing. The magic is in how relaxed it is. It's a bike that makes a slow Sunday feel like the point of riding. Where does it show its price? The highway. Get this thing up to 80, and the lack of a sixth gear and the buzzy top end remind you exactly what you paid. The forums are full of riders who love the bike but swap the seat within the first month because the stock one turns to a plank after about 90 minutes. Here's the honest comparison. A Triumph Bonneville costs nearly double. And while the Triumph is the better machine in almost every measurable way, the Interceptor delivers maybe 70% of that experience for a little over half the cash. For a first big retro or a second bike you don't want to baby, that math is hard to argue with. This one made the list because it answers the title's question before you even throw a leg over it. Worth buying? At this price, it might be the best value in all of modern motorcycling. If you've ever test-ridden one of these, drop a comment. I want to know if the highway buzz bothered you as much as it bugs the forums. Honda SCL500. Let's talk about a problem. You want a scrambler. You want that high-pipe, knobby-ish, ready for a dirt road look. But every real scrambler, the Triumphs, the Ducatis, wants $10,000, $11,000, $13,000. And most of them are too tall and too heavy for anyone who's actually new to this. That's the exact gap the Honda SCL500 was built to fill. At an MSRP right around $6,799, it's the cheapest way into the scrambler look from a brand with Honda's reliability record. And that reliability is the quiet headline here. This is the same 471cc parallel twin that's been bulletproof in the Rebel 500 for years. You are buying a known quantity. What does that mean? In the real world, it means a bike that's almost impossible to stall, light enough to flat-foot at a stop if you're shorter, and forgiving enough that a brand new rider won't get scared off in the first week. The 19-inch front wheel and the high muffler aren't just for looks. They give it a planted, easygoing stance on rough pavement. I'll be straight with you, though. This is the bike on the list with the least amount of personality once you're moving. The engine is smooth and competent and a little polite. There's no drama, no character note in the exhaust that makes you grin. Honda built a reliable appliance with great styling, and whether that's a flaw or a feature depends entirely on what you want out of a ride. Stack it against the Royal Enfield we just covered, and the choice gets interesting. The Enfield has more soul and a bigger engine for less money. The Honda has lighter weight, better fuel economy, and a dealer network on basically every corner in America. One's the heart pick. This is the head pick. It earns its spot because for the rider who values it'll start every single morning for the next decade over thrills, nothing here is a safer bet for the money. And if you're enjoying this breakdown so far, do me a quick favor and tap that like button. It genuinely helps the channel get these in front of more riders. Yamaha XSR700, 689 cubic centimeters cross-plane CP2 parallel twin, roughly 73 horsepower and 50 pound-feet of torque with 58 miles per gallon on the highway. Read those numbers and then read them again, because that combination is the whole story of why the XSR700 belongs here. Here's what those specs translate to with your hands on the bars. That CP2 engine has a torque curve that feels less like a button and more like a slingshot. There's a surge in the mid-range that the Honda and the Enfield simply can't touch. Roll the throttle on at 40 in third gear and the front end goes light. This is the first bike on the list that's flat-out exciting. And it's light, around 410 pounds wet, which means it flicks into corners with almost no effort. There's a reason this platform is a favorite for riders who want one bike that can commute Monday and carve a canyon Sunday. Priced at $8,599, it sits right in the meat of the middleweight market, and that's where its one real weakness lives: the styling. Yamaha calls it neo-retro, and the tank and round headlight nail the vibe, but the plasticky tail section and the modern radiator hanging out front mean it never fully commits to the throwback look the way a chrome Triumph does. Purists notice, compared to its closest rival, and we're about to get to that rival, the Yamaha trades a little classic authenticity for a lot more straight-line fun. It's the enthusiast's choice in a category full of cruisers in disguise. But here's where this list gets interesting, because the next bike costs $400 more than this one, makes less power, and I'd still understand completely if you bought it over the Yamaha. The reason why is one of the most divisive arguments in the whole retro scene: Moto Guzzi V7 Stone. A buddy of mine sold a perfectly good, faster Japanese bike to buy one of these. I thought he'd lost it. Then he handed me the keys. I thumbed the starter, and the entire bike rocked sideways in my hands from that big transverse V-twin firing up, and I understood immediately. That's the Moto Guzzi V7, $10,000, near enough, $9,990 for the 2026 Stone. And every dollar of it is buying you character, not numbers. The 850 cubic centimeters air-cooled V-twin sits sideways in the frame, cylinders poking out into the wind, driving the rear wheel through a shaft instead of a chain. What that means day to day: there's no chain to clean or adjust, ever. And the engine has a lazy, torquey, deeply mechanical feel that no parallel twin on this list replicates. It's not fast. It's around 65 horsepower. But it's the kind of bike you ride slowly on purpose just to feel it work. The flaws are real, so let's name them. The suspension is basic and gets flustered on genuinely bumpy roads. And against the Yamaha we just covered, you're paying more for noticeably less performance. On a spec sheet, the Guzzi loses every fight. So why is it here? Because a motorcycle isn't a spreadsheet. Owners of these talk about them the way people talk about a good dog. There's a loyalty to the V7 that you don't find around faster, more sensible machines. It's also, to my eye, the most genuinely handsome bike in this entire group. If worth buying means soul per dollar instead of horsepower per dollar, the Guzzi makes its case louder than anything else here. Subscribe if you want more honest takes like this one, the kind where the slow bike still wins. Kawasaki Z650RS. Put the Z650RS next to the Yamaha XSR700, and you've got the closest, fairest fight in the middleweight retro class. And it's the comparison that should decide which of these two ends up in your garage. Both run a 649-ish cc parallel twin. Both are light. But the Kawasaki, at $8,999, leans harder into the pure classic look, and that's where it wins points the Yamaha loses. The round LED headlight, the slim tank, the dual dial gauges, it's a shrunken-down tribute to the legendary Z900RS, and it looks the part from 10 feet away. In the real world, the engine is the difference. Where the Yamaha's CP2 punches you in the mid-range, the Kawasaki's twin is smoother and a touch softer, friendlier, easier, less likely to startle a newer rider, but also less thrilling when you want to misbehave. It's the more relaxed of the two. The weakness here is honesty in pricing. The Kawasaki costs $400 more than the more powerful Yamaha, and you're essentially paying that premium for styling and the badge. On performance alone, it loses. Some riders won't care. They want the look, and the look is excellent, but it's worth knowing exactly what your money is and isn't buying. There's also a quieter issue owners mention. As good as the Z650RS looks, it can feel like a styling exercise wrapped around a sensible commuter, rather than a bike with its own distinct personality. It's competent in a way that occasionally tips into forgettable. Still, it made this list because for the rider who wants the retro look without the retro headaches, a brand new, reliable, great-looking Kawasaki under $9,000 is a legitimately smart buy. It's the sensible choice that doesn't look sensible. And right before we get to the bike that, for me, makes this whole list worth filming, there's one more machine that asks a very different question of your wallet. Triumph Speed, Twin 900. Picture yourself at the dealer. You've ridden the cheaper bikes, you like them, and then you swing a leg over this and twist the throttle in the parking lot, and the doors close on the cheaper options in your head, one by one. That's the Speed Twin 900 effect. This is where the list crosses into proper premium retro territory. A sticker right around $11,000 once it's on the road. And the question stops being, is this cheap? And becomes, is this worth it? The 900 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled parallel twin makes about 64 horsepower and a thick 59 pound-feet of torque. On the road, that translates to effortless roll-on in any gear. You stop downshifting and just ride the wave. But the real upgrade you're paying for is everywhere your eyes and hands land. The switchgear feels expensive. The paint has depth. The brushed finishes and the genuine British classic lineage are things the Enfield and the Honda simply can't fake. Its flaw is the flip side of that polish. It's the heaviest feeling bike of the group at low speed and that liquid-cooled engine, while smoother and cleaner than an old air-cooled Bonneville, has lost a sliver of the raw, lumpy character the purists chase. You gain refinement. You give up a little rawness. Against the Moto Guzzi at roughly the same money, it's a clean philosophical split. The Triumph is the better-built, better-performing, more polished machine. The Guzzi is the weirder, more soulful one. Neither is wrong. It belongs on a worth-buying list because, unlike a lot of bikes at this price, you can actually feel where the money went the moment you ride it. Nothing here feels like a waste, bud. But it's still not my number one, because the last bike does something none of these can, and it costs less than you'd guess for what you get. Kawasaki Z900RS. Everything up to now has been a 4 or 6 cylinder fantasy delivered by a twin. The Z900RS is the one that gives you the real thing. A 948 cubic centimeters inline 4, around 111 horsepower wrapped in styling that's a direct love letter to the legendary Z, one of the 70s. And for 2026, Kawasaki reworked the engine and electronics and added cruise control. So it's the most modern bike here hiding inside the most classic shape here, $12,899. Hold that against the $11,000 Triumph and the $10,000 Guzzi, and here's the thing. For less than $2,000 more than the Triumph, you're getting nearly double the cylinders and a genuinely intoxicating engine. That 4-cylinder howl as it climbs through the revs is something no twin on this list can produce. It is the sound of the bike. In the real world, that means a machine that's relaxed and torquey at a cruise but turns into something properly fast the second you ask. It's the only bike here I'd happily take on a long highway day and grin about on a twisty road. The flaws? It's the heaviest bike in the group, and that weight is real when you're pushing it around the garage. And the price means it's no longer in great value territory the way the Enfield is, and this is a considered purchase, not an impulse one. But here's my honest verdict on the whole question. Most of these bikes ask you to accept a compromise. Character or performance, looks or substance, cheap or special. The Z900RS is the rare one that refuses to compromise, and it doesn't charge supercar money to do it. So, 7 retro bikes, 1 promise: don't waste your money. Here's where it lands. If your budget is tight and you want the most motorcycle per dollar, the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 is almost impossible to beat at $6,300. If you want bulletproof and beginner-friendly, the Honda. If you want a soul, the Guzzi. But if I had to spend my own money on exactly one bike from this list and ride it for the next 10 years, it's the Kawasaki Z900RS, because it's the only one that never asks you to settle. That's my pick, Now I want yours. Which of these 7 would actually end up in your garage? And which one do you think I got wrong? Tell me in the comments. And if this saved you from a bad buy, hit subscribe. That's the kind of honest breakdown we do here every week.